All right, let's go ahead and get started. Thank you everybody for joining us. To get us going, I would like to introduce Unique CEO Nicole Atkins. Nicole's going to take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our third installment of our webinar series. I'm Nicole Atkins, and I serve as CEO here at Unique Management. For those of you who are not familiar with Unique Management Services, we are a library communication solutions provider. We have worked with thousands of libraries across the globe for over about 30 years, 32 years to be exact, providing a variety of different services that meet a wide range of library needs. Our webinar series that we've been doing for a couple of months cover all the different services that we offer here at Unique, and each service has an impact at a different stage of the overall life cycle of a library patron. Today, we're going to do a dive into our two newest services, our uRegister and uRenew. uRegister is our self-service registration system that lies at the very beginning of a library customer's journey, and uRenew is our automated borrower renewal service, which impacts patrons and library staff when card privileges are set to expire. All of Unique services are paired with a dedicated account and customer support because we know communications matter most to libraries. So ensuring these functions work correctly are extremely important to us. In addition, a few elements that we have found critical to public libraries are all baked into all of our products that we offer here at Unique. One is visibility into what is happening with our services. Knowing what is going on is really half the battle, and you'll see that in these services as well as all of our others. Another is flexibility. Libraries share many common practices, but each library within itself is very unique. If you layer in structures like consortiums, things can get really complicated pretty quickly. All of our services are built to handle both standalone libraries along with your really complicated consortiums, allowing for individual library participation and dedicated individual settings. We hope that you find this content very helpful today and very interesting as well. And more importantly, seeing how it might help your library with any of your current challenges you may be having. We're proud of the work that we do here at Unique, and we're grateful to partner with many of you. And we're eager to share the expertise that we've been able to develop throughout the years. So thank you very much for joining us today. And with that, I'll pass it over to Rob.
Hey, everybody. Thanks, Kevin and Nicole. It's great to be with you. And I appreciate you taking some time out of your day. We're also recording this, so we'll share this recording at the end, and you can pass it along to others that maybe weren't able to attend live today. But yeah, we're super excited to share some of our newer services today with you. We've been really working hard to make them valuable time-saving services for libraries. MessageBee for itself, for those of you that are unfamiliar with the platform, started out in 2019, focused purely on circulation notifications, and has evolved into really a full spectrum communication platform for libraries. Pretty much any kind of communication that a library generates, we can do through MessageBee. So that's, of course, circulation notices where we started, but also marketing related and outreach related communications. And it's full spectrum, being that we're doing that across email, automated voice, text messaging, and more recently, some in-app notifications for some common library apps. So I'm going to just jump in. I know a number of you answered our poll. I appreciate you doing that. Let's look at the results here, if I can get my screen right. Struggling. There we go. All right, so about 70-30 do offer self-service card registration today. But then it kind of flips on its head in terms of real-time verification. And it's about 70-30 the other way that don't or wish they could. So, it seems like maybe about 70% there's really not a lot of verification going on. And then kind of a wide range across different answers for how many phone calls your library might have received last week for or regarding a patron's card expiring. So a couple received zero, but a lot are getting phone calls. These are staff interactions, patrons that are calling in and things that you have to answer and deal with to keep patron cards going. So. And the heat now, I see a few people saying like 95 down or 75 down from 95, and that's much the same here in the Louisville area. We were like 95 yesterday, and so it's a nice cool 77 today. So kind of across the country, I'm getting a lot of good 70 and 80s, the occasional 90s. maybe in some places you would expect it. So, but I appreciate you filling that out. That's helpful to us. So, um, yeah. So our two new services, uRenew and uRegister, we've added them to the MessageBee platform, and both services have communication outputs. So from our perspective, it just made a bit of sense to add it as options or modules to the MessageBee platform. We also have a lot of libraries already using MessageBee, so their staff are in the MessageBee portal and using it. So MessageBee is evolving from being a purely a communications tool to increasingly one that also has some data services associated with it. And the idea behind developing each of these came really from talking to our customers. Many of you, if you've worked with Unique over the years, have that experience of somebody from Unique coming into your office to talk to you about, what we are doing for you today. But also we hear about the things that you want and need in the future. And this is one of those things that we just consistently heard over the past 7 or 8 years was self-service registration and some way to make the renewal process easier. And knowing that we work with some data services around identities, addresses, that kind of thing, I think it made sense for libraries to be asking us about that. And we thought that it was something that we would, be able to build and build tools that really work for libraries. So I probably do not need to sell you on the idea of actually offering a self-service registration tool for your library and community. From the poll results, 70% of those of you on this call anyways, I don't know how scientific that is across the entire spectrum of libraries in the US, but with the rapid expansion of all these e-media resources over the past few years, we can all see how that consumption of media has changed from your customers, your patrons. While physical media and in-person resources remain very significant, increasingly people are consuming, your services in a virtual manner. And some of your patrons may never even come into a physical location. So you really have had a change in expectations for how your customers, your patrons, your community interacts with you. And so when a prospective patron, somebody in your community that's not a customer right now, can gain access to those resources, they are leveraging that investment that you've made in having resources to share with them. So it's a win for the library, win for the patron, win for the community. In our current world, for many people, you can go online at literally any hour of the day, interact with an e-commerce platform, and gain access to media or purchase pretty much anything at any time. And so I think to match elements of that, this kind of access really makes sense and helps to remain relevant. So if your library can offer a quick ability to get to the tools that people want, it's convenient, they can do it from their home, you're going to make your patrons or your maybe prospective patrons happy, and you're going to save library staff time and energy. And so the idea behind the system is to create one where the vast majority of cases, either for registration or renewal, can be automated, can be done without human intervention. But, there are still going to be cases where there is the need for that. So can we winnow that down so that your team, you are focusing on those exceptions that truly require manual intervention or review? Creating that convenience, it also has to be balanced with some form of validation and verification. The dollars that are invested by your library in these electronic resources are sourced from and intended for your community, right? And what we're seeing is libraries reporting that their costs for these media resources are just escalating faster and faster every year, 30 to 40% per year in some cases. We've even seen some specific services that now cost, $2 per transaction, per circulation. And with Urban Library Council reporting that most of their members now spending more than 50% of their collection budget on these electronic resources, It's just really critical that these are being, the dollars that you're spending are being spent on your community stakeholders. Libraries just have a really tight rope to walk here. You've got to continue to deliver on your mission of providing access. I think that's the primary thing that I think many library staff really are focused on. Now we've got to add this relevance and convenience for self-service, all while really trying to keep a lid on spending and ensuring the budget isn't broken. Pretty tough thing to try and accomplish. So as 70% of you in the poll indicated, you are offering self-service registration. And there are pre-existing options that are out there. Our perspective and some of the things that we've heard from other libraries indicate that there's some gaps in how those tools are operating, how they're working today, which we feel our service, uRegister, can help to address. And I think probably the most significant is that verification component. Many of the tools or ILS provided self-service registration modules, they might allow you to set up a set of zip codes, street names, municipality names that are considered in your service area. And so somebody punching in an address that kind of meets that minimum level, a zip code, a street name, they can get a library card. Recently, within the past couple of years, we undertook a study for one large library to evaluate the validity of their existing e-card registrations. So we took the names and the addresses of these borrowers and looked to assess, do these people have some kind of relationship with the address that was reported? What we found, just at the lowest hanging fruit, the most basic thing is hundreds of accounts that just used the Major League Baseball stadium in their town. Hundreds of others using things like a McDonald's address, that kind of thing. So that's not actually a valid verification process. And if you're not aware of it right now, that people on the internet are interested in having access to your electronic resources. You have some really cool stuff. And you can likely find Reddit threads on your own of tips and tricks for people sharing ways to gain access to library cards that are likely really intended for your local community. So having that system that provides a higher level of verification is important, and balancing that with a reasonably costed tool. If you're going to onboard hundreds, potentially thousands of new borrowers through this manner, we've got to do that in a cost-effective way. Other shortcomings that we found involve really a lack of visibility into the process. What records were created, and really, maybe more importantly sometimes, which ones were not created and why. Our MessageBee solution itself, from the very beginning, the visibility that we gave to libraries on their communications, which text messages were being delivered, which ones weren't, emails, that kind of thing. It really is a game changer. And we think that we can do the exact same thing with our registration and renewal processes here as well. A third shortcoming centers on the complexity of some library configurations. With over 30 years of working with public libraries, it's really informed our approach to building the services in MessageBee, both our communication services and now registration and renewal. This service and these systems can work for your single location library, smaller library, all the way up to consortiums that have 100+ members, some of those members having multiple locations. So the ability to build a system that can meet that, allowing for very localized configuration and settings at the individual library level, and doing that at scale for many libraries is it's a really key part of how we build things at Unique. And finally, both the registration and renewal process necessarily involve communications. On the success side, we need to welcome our new patrons to the fold, or let a patron whose privileges have just been renewed, remind them or tell them about all of the resources that your library has and how to utilize them. And then on the flip side, when things don't work out and we can't register or renew, it's critical to pass that kind of message on along as well. And so MessageBee being a communication tool, we can address that in a very robust manner. So our solution or solutions are two new services, uRegister, a verified borrower registration service, and uRenew, an automated borrower renewal service. And so both of these services include a range of options for data service handling, verifying the identity and the address of a registrant or patron, the ability to ensure there are no duplicate borrower accounts created, the ability to be very flexible in the geographic service area configurations that we have. So having multiple options for that, not just one, this is our service area, but primary service areas, reciprocal service areas, that kind of thing. And that matters for the renewal process. For example, if somebody just moves across town, why not maintain their access? They're still eligible for a card. So both of these services are going to allow for in-depth settings and configurations that allow your library to implement specific policies as they relate to the card creation and the privilege renewal processes. And the goal here, just to be totally clear, is reducing friction for both processes, not creating a situation that is wide open. If everything checks out, let's just take care of the situation right now in an automated manner. But if not, well, we do get library staff involved. And the automation is applying your rules, not our rules. And so what are some of those rules? We'll get into each of the services in a more specific manner in a minute, but just at a general level, the base of it is geographic boundaries. So each library setup has a primary service area and a primary geographic configuration. And that can be literally anything. So we essentially can build a map from pretty much any kind of boundary, township, zip code, city, county. We can get even more specific if we need to, literally drawing a map. And so then things that are inside of the boundaries of our map are in that service area, while things outside of it are not. And each of those geographies can contain some settings related to defining or changing a patron type or a patron category. So somebody that's registering from your primary service area might get one patron type, and in the surrounding county, they might get another one that comes with different privileges associated with that card. And similarly, we can do different communications associated with each of these geographies, because somebody's card might give them access to one thing and somebody else might get something else. So it's important to be able to convey that accurately. We don't want to tell somebody, hey, this is what you get with your card, when in fact they don't. Other things we can do at a geography level is set potentially other data elements in the ILS when we're creating a card or renewing a card. So think like statistical class codes, that kind of thing. It's a very common thing for libraries to keep track of maybe different municipalities or areas and where those patrons come from. For registration, we can also enforce minimum age requirements. We can set different OPAC password rules so that when an account is created, maybe we're auto-generating it, maybe we're allowing the patron to select it. We do different barcode ranges, different options for what barcode to use when we're creating the account. Importantly, and we'll get into more detail on this, but appeal options when something doesn't go right or it doesn't get approved automatically. There's the option for a registrant to appeal things, selecting home branches. And then we also have different rules and settings associated with how strict we are with our identity validation. And then on the renewal side, similar kinds of things. I mean, that's actually the screen we're looking at here is a setting dashboard for a renewal process. What patron types or categories are eligible for the process. So not every library patron type is going to enter into the renewal process, so we can be pretty specific with that, both at the patron type level and the location. What kinds of communications are we sending for that? Balance thresholds. So if somebody owes the library a certain amount of money, we won't automatically renew it. Same thing with activity. If somebody hasn't been active in the ILS in 2 years, maybe we will not renew that. So all of these are library-specific settings that allow for a lot of local control. And as a new product, there are a lot of options here, but this will continue to evolve. As Nicole mentioned in her opening remarks, working with so many different library systems, we've seen many, many different operating models and needs. So as we work with more libraries, we know that there are elements that we will adapt and tweak to be able to make work for individual libraries. I'm going to jump into the registration system and just kind of how that works in more detail. The system will provide for your library a registration widget, which will get embedded on your library website. That way, your site can provide a fair bit of context and additional information around registration and having a card. But what we're seeing here in this PowerPoint is essentially just that widget in isolation. In a moment, I'll show you what it looks like in an actual website, so you get that sense as well. But this isn't just a form that we've thrown on a website. It's a multi-step flow, and the registrant, and you can see there at the top of that, the different steps delineated that they'll go through. We do offer the option to implement this in multiple languages. So if that's relevant for you and your library, we can do that. If it's not, and we're just implementing in English, this step just goes away, and we start with number 2, which is the terms and conditions. So after we either select a language, or maybe this is the first thing that a registrant would see, we've got a terms and conditions, and this is a library-specific self-service configurable option that you can set up in the MessageBee dashboard. And this is essentially what the registrant is agreeing to in order to gain access to a new library card. So they must agree to continue, and so we shall. Optionally, we can have some communication agreements. This is a very simple one, but we can ask questions about email, about text messaging, and again, totally optional, but we can configure that here, and a borrower, a registrant can agree to that or not. Then finally, we are going to get to that form that collects the information necessary to either make a library card or to determine if somebody is actually eligible for a library card. So we're going to be collecting name, address, date of birth, email address, phone number, depending on configuration, allowing them to set an opaque password, potentially setting a home branch from the library system as their home library. So as we enter this information, when we're typing in the street address, that is an autocomplete type of entry. So as you start typing in the address, address options will appear, and then once one is selected, the remaining fields are auto-populated. When we hit submit, that's when the magic starts to happen. There's a few things that are going to happen when we do that. The very first thing is we're going to actually check to see if there is an existing card in the ILS for this registrant. And this duplicate checking is intentionally fuzzy, certainly not uncommon for email addresses to be used on multiple cards, even using the same street address. So it's designed to make sure we're flagging duplicates correctly, using date of birth where available if it's in the system. Some libraries collect that, some don't. So, it can make that tricky between systems, but I think we've got a pretty good option here to make sure you're not getting duplicate accounts in the system. Second, if it's not a duplicate, we're going to move on to doing a geography check on the address entered. Is this within the boundaries of one of the configured geographic service areas for the library? And then finally, if it's not a duplicate, we're in the boundaries, then we're going to proceed on to identity validation. And in this step, what we're looking to see is if the name, address, date of birth, potentially email address, phone number, IP address even in some cases, go together and make a match in a consumer data verification system. And essentially it gets scored, and then if it is determined to not be essentially invalid, we're going to proceed and create the account. If not, maybe somebody typed in an address wrong. They have a couple of options to, maybe just review the information they entered and resubmit. So in the event that any of these fail, each library using this service has two options. So you can either allow for an appeal from the registrant or to simply deny the registration. And each option can be toggled on or off. So you have the ability to allow appeals for identity validation failures, but not duplicates. And that can be changed at any time. So what you're seeing on this screen is kind of what happens when there's not a successful registration attempt. So the bottom two, there's the appeal. At the moment, the appeal is simply a message that the registrant is entering and submitting, and that's going to show up in a staff interface that staff can review and make a determination about, potentially communicate more with the registrant. And a future enhancement for this is the ability to maybe upload documents, that kind of thing, through the system to further facilitate a process where library staff are having to review an appeal. If the appeal is submitted, the registrant is going to see this message letting them know that they're going to hear back through email later at this point. So, but on the other hand, great news, we got everything worked out. We weren't a duplicate. We live in the service area, and the identity was validated. So we can create that new card right away. It's created in the ILS in real time. This is the new barcode. And then there will be an email that goes to the new registrant as well. I'm going to take a beat and share actually our website and show you some of those options for the communications. So here we are. We're looking at the MessageBee portal. We're in our marketing toolkit under campaigns. And so for this test library, we've got two different campaigns, one for e-card registration and one for automated renewal. And then we've got a new card created template and then the card appeal denied. And clicking on edit lets us come in here and we can see this is the canvas that our email is being built upon. And then we've got a toolkit here, or a palette of options that we can drag and drop into this email. So pretty easy to be able to do that. On branding, we've got logos, we've got colors, we've got typography, and then in this, hey, welcome to the library template. The library is going to introduce the new patron to services and options for exploring the library right here. So this is all can be created and edited by library staff at any point. If we are, going through an appeal process and not going to provide that card to that registrant, there's a different template. A message from staff would appear here, get kind of it's a merge variable. So different options for that. But this is pretty powerful. We can have this, this is the most simple kind of setup where we've got one email for card creation, one for appeal denied. In our renewal process, we've got a card renewed and card not renewed. But we can get, much more. We can get much more specific. We can get much more complex based on potentially different languages, potentially people coming from different card types, different patron types, that kind of thing. While I'm in the web browser, I did want to show you. So this is our fictitious library, the Milne Public Library, and we've got a get a card page like some of you might have. So here you can see, this is the library website. This is the widget. We click on our language selection, and then we're going to move into the next. Naturally, try to do something live, and it's not good. There we go. Just let it time out. I think it had been sitting on my screen for a while. So you get the idea. But go back to my PowerPoint now. All right. So looking at the automated borrow renewal process a bit more, get into those details. So this concept is a little newer for libraries than self-service registration. But our thinking when hearing from libraries that they wanted some way to improve card renewal, we said, we see a lot of items being automatically renewed for borrowers. Shouldn't there be a process that we could use to automatically renew eligible library patrons? So that seemed like it made sense. And the idea here is that we're looking forward in the near future for patrons with cards expiring, maybe 45 days out. And we do that every day. And then we're going to consider each of those patron records. Let's first make sure that they are in good standing as you define it. And so that could be, a monetary threshold, blocking, activity. So if somebody hasn't used library services in 2 years or 3 years or whatever your threshold is to define that, or, maybe that monetary threshold is $10 or $50, whatever that happens to be. We'll look at a borrower and say, okay, eligible or not eligible. If, according to those things, we are not eligible, then we're going to be done. We're not renewing that account. If things are good, then now we're going to use data services again to take a look at that name and address and see, are they still at that address or have they moved? And if they have moved, maybe again, they just moved across town. That's not an uncommon thing. So if they're eligible, if they haven't moved or they're still at the address, or if they have moved to another area that's within the library's service area, then let's just renew that card right now. And so we're going to update the expiration date to be whatever date in the future is appropriate for that card type that they have. Potentially, we can even change the card type. If they're moving from your primary service area to maybe the broader county where you have a reciprocal borrowing agreement, we can do that kind of thing. We can leave a note in the ILS so hey, this happened on this account. We can optionally make address updates, both for new addresses found or even the existing ones. So what we would be putting back into the ILS would be the USPS standardized address, which is something libraries have found helpful to kind of standardize those addresses. We all know data entry can be, I think the word is variable, but this standardizes your addresses. And if we can't renew for whatever reason, totally fine. The patron can be made aware that their card privilege is expiring soon, and that email could contain specific steps that that person would need to take in order to maintain access. So if you contrast that with the typical situation at a public library, it's a cumbersome and manual process that consumes a ton of library staff time. Either it's over the phone or it's in person. And I hear this from libraries that sign up like, wow, we had 15 less phone calls last month or last week. And that can make a big difference at the front desk. Unique, as you may or may not know, answers the phone for public libraries all across the US. And so we know there's just a cost to providing service. It can take time away from doing those more important things. If we can clear the decks and reduce the number of those manual interactions by 50 to 80%, really kind of depending on some of the rules you put in place, how much time is that giving back to your team? And to say nothing really of the making life easier for your customers, your patrons. So that ends up being the base situation here. Create a scenario where when the situation is right, we use automation to create or update records. But in the situations where it's necessary, give staff tools that let them intervene or review and make changes that resolve the situation. In both instances, we're leveraging data solutions to achieve that, but ultimately we're not reducing access for anyone. We're just enabling and utilizing tools that create more self-service options, some more automation options that ultimately save library staff time so they can be freed up to do other things. And having both of these services living in one portal and tool creates a lot of power for the library. You're logging into one system. You can view reporting and manage communications for each service. And the registration process is not just a web form. Dumping data into either a spreadsheet that your staff are going through and then manually creating accounts in the ILS or creating junk accounts in your ILS. Instead, it's a comprehensive system that just really enables a range of new outcomes. Reporting is really critical to the entire situation. As I said earlier, I think message B was really illuminating for libraries when it came to email or text message communication, to be able to just see exactly what's happening almost in real time with their communications. And we've brought that to the registration and renewal processes as well. So both at an aggregated level, what you're seeing on the screen now is, the bigger image is the dashboard for the registration process. So, over time, we're seeing how many accounts are being created through the system, how many appeals there are, how many just failed. So being able to log in and see that at any moment, pretty powerful. And then the smaller image you're seeing is kind of that similar aggregated data for the renewal. So for every day that the process runs, we can see how many were renewed, how many were unrenewed. And then we can drill down critically and see the details for both things. So on the renewal side, we can see that specific record. We can see that outcome. Why did it not get renewed? Was there a new address? Where was it? And for registration, why did a registration attempt fail? Was it because a duplicate patron was detected? We won't show necessarily the duplicate patron, but we are showing why. And on the identity failure side, kind of depending on some of the options you choose for the service, we can show pretty specific reasons for why we rejected a registration. So, maybe the address and the name just don't go together. So we can see that level of detail. In addition to these awesome dashboards that you can log into anytime and poke around, MessageBee users, your staff users, can optionally sign up for daily or weekly email digests that summarize the activity around both processes. So imagine every morning getting an email that says, hey, you had 5 new eCard registrations, you've got 1 open appeal and 2 failed. And you had 40 auto renews and 13 that didn't. And then from there, you can jump into the portal, obviously, and take a look at the details. And then on the registration side of things, if you are using those appeals, library staff can optionally be alerted via email to new appeals. So you don't have to live in the portal, just come and consume it when you're ready. I think a lot changes when we put all of these things in place. I think from the patron side, it's obviously quicker access, convenience. There's less friction to utilizing the library. And then on the staff side, it's removing a lot of manual work that in a lot of cases doesn't need to be done. The vast majority of your borrowers are staying at their address year after year. And so we can just take care of these things and staff can focus on the things they really need to. Consistent policy application, fewer kind of urgent requests to restore access. Hey, I really need my card today and I've got to take care of it right away. For the library itself, I think it is very critical. Some of these resource consumption, the vast cost of these electronic resources doesn't seem like it's going to go away. And it seems like consumption by the public of these resources only becomes more relevant every year. So doing things to help protect that investment that your community is making in itself is critical. And then just the management of both processes, that visibility into things it just can't be understated. That's very important. Having local control. If you're in a consortium, things that matter to your library are important. Just so some questions to consider as you're thinking about this. How many registrations are you doing? If you're doing I talk to libraries and they do manual registration. Their e-card is going into a spreadsheet and they look at it and make a determination and then they go and type all that into the ILS. Same thing with renewals. I asked the question in the poll, how many phone calls? If you don't know, it's something to be thinking about. The verification process. Can you go to your e-registration system and then go to Google Maps and get an address and type it in and get a card? It's something to really think about. Maybe you do have an e-card system, but duplicate patrons are being created. Every time somebody forgets their OPAC password, are they creating a new account? Is that good or bad? And then do you have visibility into all this data? Can you go and look and know exactly what happened? And then do you have good communication elements that allow you to share things about your libraries and clearly convey to your patrons what's going on. So there's a last question I think I'd ask you to consider and as you're thinking about these services and where like customer service would come in. As Nicole said out of the gate, that's part of what Unique does. And how we've built our business over 30 years is really to have customer service. And Nicole's a big part of that. So, Nicole, I mean, just the kinds of things that you see on a daily or regular basis, how is it that Unique's been able to do that? What's important to the process to make that happen?
As many people probably on this call that have been involved with Unique for many years, customer service is more really than just a department here. We do have a customer service department, but it's really more than just a department. It's really the foundation of which the principle that the company was founded upon 32 years ago. We've been able to grow through our long-term success that we've had because of our level of customer service that we have. We look at every customer interaction, whether that be with our library staff or whether that be with the library patron when we make outbound calls or when we receive inbound calls. We look at that as an opportunity for us to build trust and to really strengthen our relationships with your patrons and with library staff as well. And I remember when I first walked in the door when I applied for the job, almost 30 years ago. And we had these little flyers that were posted at every cubicle, the doorway when you came in, the front door, in the break room, was really the golden rule is to do unto others as you'd have others do unto you. And that is something, a principle that we've lived on for 32 years of the existence of this company. So customer service is very, very important to this company.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, we all are happy when things are working exactly like they're supposed to, but there's times when things just aren't working exactly the way we want them to. And as we work with new different libraries, there's things that come up. And, I think what matters here is that people take things personally. If something's not working, we are very interested in seeing it work correctly, quickly, or if there's a change to a system that makes it work better for our customers, we do make every effort to have that happen. So I think it's important, especially in this process. These are borrower records. You need to know that you've got a partner that is taking those things into account and will be responsive to your questions and to your concerns. So,
and transparency. We believe in transparency.
Absolutely. And I think that the reporting that we try to provide for all of our services is as much information as we can in a consumable way. So, no, we've got a bunch of questions.
Yes,
Kevin, I don't know if you've got them, or I can
I sure
look through
do.
this.
I can rattle off some. We should get to most of these today.
Cool.
This first one's very straightforward, although you can probably expand on it as well. Does this integrate well with Koa? And if you want to offer other ILSs that it works with as well, Rob.
Yeah, absolutely. It does integrate well with Koa. So we utilize their REST API for all of the functions that you saw, creating borrower records, pulling data for renewal, that kind of thing. We work with, pretty much every ILS. I can't say all of them for sure, in that service public libraries. So Polaris, Sierra, Circe Dynix, Symphony, and Horizon, Evergreen. For registration and renewal, that's the list right now. So I think we're always looking to expand that, but that's where we are today.
All right, thank you. We've got a question here from Donna. We have numerous members who inquire how secure our system is, and they're very cautious as to what and how their information is used. How secure is this?
Yeah, so I mean, we've been handling libraries, borrower data for 3 decades, so we take it very seriously. We have a very established and mature IT department, data security. We've got a data security officer. We've recently been going through our SOC 2 for security audit. I think literally any day we're expecting the results of that. So certainly when it comes to data storage, data is encrypted at rest. It's encrypted when we're transferring it. We have data retention rules that you can set at a library level, so data gets purged on your schedule, that kind of thing. So, and your data is your data. We don't own it, and we don't utilize it for any other purpose. We would not be in business with public libraries very long if we ever did something like that. So we're very cognizant of those concerns, Donna, and take it seriously.
All right. We have a question about some edge cases here. If a specific library card type requires a payment, such as a friend of the library, does payment software already exist in this system, or does it integrate with other systems such as PayPal?
At this time, we do not have those integrations. That is definitely on our roadmap to enhance the product with that. So we have some, I know we interact with some library systems that do have paid cards, and when we create a card for that, it automatically creates a bill on the borrower record, and then payment is handled through that library's pre-existing payment channels. And so it is our goal to build in, the ability to handle payment within our process. So excellent question. Not quite there today, but we will have that later this year, early next year.
All right. We have another question here. Can you link to this form, or is there a QR code to the form that libraries can put on promotional flyers?
Yeah, a couple of options for that. So most libraries are going to have that form embedded on their website under a URL that's their own. You can just link directly to that raw widget if you want to the form. And there is a URL associated with that you could generate a QR code for. But most libraries are going to have it on, yourlibraryname.org/register. And that's where that form is going to be. You would generate a QR code for that URL and put that on collateral that you have out in your community.
All right. We have a question here from Eric. Can you verify against other sources of data instead of geography? For example, county assessor records, for example, where library tax assessments are recorded for certain parcels.
We are not integrating directly with county tax assessors at this point. We are using third-party kind of aggregators that are pulling data from places like that. So it is not purely just geographic validation. It is things that are, kind of consumer data verification systems. And that allows, if you're just doing on tax assessments, that kind of thing, I think you can end up missing people who are renting and that kind of thing. So at this point, that's where we are. We do have multiple data services that we can utilize in that process, and have a pretty good track record of being able to identify and verify accounts.
All right, we have just a couple more here. One is our library offers shared accounts. Would there be a space during registration to have the account owner include the names of individuals they would like to offer shared access to on their account?
Yes, that is an option to be able to do that. So, I mean, there may be some limits to it. It may not fit exactly the situation that the questioner has, but essentially, the construct we had for it was with parent and children accounts. So we're going to start with the parent. They're going to input their information at the top. And then if there's, other people that they want to put on their card, they're going to put those people's names and their date of birth. At this point, the rest of the information, including the email address, is essentially shared between those accounts. So that's where we are with that today. But again, we're constantly looking for ways to be able to deal with those kinds of situations exactly like that. So I think from the sounds of it, it would work for what is being described.
Okay, we've actually had a couple more pop in here, if you don't mind answering, Rob. How soon after someone moves can they be verified? We send out new mover postcards from Unique
Yeah.
and would like to put the online form QR code on those. And that's
Yeah, it can. There's not a scientific answer to that. And I wish there was, because we do. I mean, and there are different data sources out there that are sourcing that new mover versus the kind of identity validation stuff. So I'd say it could be a couple weeks up to even a month or two later before data kind of catches up with people. Because yeah. So I'd love it if that was the case. And, I do think about that a lot because I'm deeply involved with the new mover process as well, and trying to find a way to balance that. So if you do send that postcard out, that there is some kind of extra valid or, an extra flag on that registry from new mover. But where we are today, those are different data sources. So that can lead to a situation where somebody's data hasn't caught up with them. That's the reality.
Okay, we got just a couple more here. How do you verify that the person or address registering is actually that person as opposed to someone using another person's name or address?
Yeah, at this point, it really is that kind of combination of data elements together. It's that I tell you that there's not somebody out there who can figure out all those data elements, name, address, date of birth, email address, and have their IP address also, be associated with their data. Um, but at this point, we are not doing like uploads of documents. That's something that we've considered adding as an enhancement in the future. So if a library wants that additional step of having a verification document element or a driver's license picture, at least temporarily, where they can then review, is a potential enhancement that we do. So it is that balance, convenience, kind of cost, and that's where we are today.
All right, Rob, I think we're losing your audio a little bit, so we'll go and end the Q&A there. Nicole, if you have any closing remarks.
I do. I just wanted to kind of just as closing, thank you very much for coming on the webinar today. We're always excited to be able to show you the things that we're doing here at Unique. And just appreciate you guys taking your hour out of your day to get on here with us. We'll be sending this webinar to everyone that's registered on this webinar today. So you'll have an actual copy of this. And we'll also be sending some links within there if you wanted to, get a personal demonstration of this. We would be very happy to do that for you. And there's going to be some forms that you can fill out as well for doing that. But we appreciate you getting on here today and really learning more about what we're doing. And we're, like I said, we're always happy to share the new things. And this is an exciting time for Unique with all the new products that we're offering. So just thank you very much for getting on here with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.